Hey, what's up guys? Crave here, and let's talk about prepping our agents for the upcoming patch. Now, the full patch notes can be seen on Ubisoft's site or in your launcher, which I will also link in the description box below. Now, most of them, you can't really do anything because they're new content, which means basically you'll just have to wait for them to drop on the 12th. But there are 5 things you can do to make sure you're ready for the Incursions patch, so here are some of the things I think you should do before the 12th of April. Yeah, this close to the content drop, this tip may not apply, but leveling takes a day or two since you're pretty much familiar with Manhattan. Now, you already know the base of operations upgrades that gives you the experience boost, so make sure to focus on those. Also, make sure to, any gear that you might have that gives bonus XP is sent over to your alt so that things will just basically go by much faster. Now, you'll only need one alt, at least that's how I see it. Now, the only reason for doing this is if you're having trouble spamming the challenge mode missions. Now, Lincoln and Lexington missions are pretty easy to complete, and you'll often see that, see those 2 missions being called out in general chat. Now, challenge modes are quite rewarding unless you prefer the Dark Zone 5 and 6 areas for the best loot. Now, sometimes, yeah, you can't do it. Could either be because your usual buddies aren't online, or you always end up with the first timers for the challenge modes. So an alt allows you to have another go at the daily hard modes in case challenge modes, spamming those challenge modes becomes difficult or impossible to do. Oh, and one thing about alts, you can also make them act as a bank, an alternative bank, which is sort of a decent solution to the really small stash base we have at the moment. You will have been inundated with mats as you leveled your character, completed your hard mode or challenge mode or DZ runs. Now, you'll have a whole lot of greens and blue crafting materials unless you've been playing with Fate very often and hoping for that god roll on stats for your weapons and gear. Now, if you do have a bunch of mats and you haven't converted them, make sure to do them before the 12th, as the patch will also change conversion rates. So what you're seeing on your screen is a pretty steep change in the conversion rates. So whether you plan to craft even before the patch drops or not, it's best that you get the most out of your mats while the rates are still good. So if you don't plan to level an alt and gear him, then stock up on all your yellow crafting materials so you can be ready for the new prints that come with the patch or with patch 1.1. I mean, you can always do it later, but if you have the money or currency and materials to craft, basically on day 1 of the patch, why not do that? I've been doing this for a while now, but if you plan to make sure your main character has the appropriate mats for all the blueprints acquired and the blueprints you will soon acquire in the new patch, make sure to drop your decon gear in your stash and have your main deconstruct them. Now, remember that only cosmetics and Phoenix credits are shared, so if your main has all the blueprints, send over your gear, mods, and weapons so that that main can get all the mats, unless of course you're the type who wants to basically have all your characters to be sort of quote-unquote complete. Now, it can be a hassle because the logging in and out process does take some time depending on your tune, your connection and your setup. And also there is that chance you'll get the Delta error, the mic error, the bingo error, whatever error, and you'll also be faced with the queue time, so just be aware that those things can happen. And basically just keep it simple if you don't like the tediousness of the process. So if you want to, you can just sort of send over the items that you want to be deconstructed that are important to you. So in my case, I have a very high, a very low number of tools or high-end tools. So I often prioritize dropping the gear and weapon mods in the stash if I want to minimize the logging in and out process. Well, we've been waiting for them for quite a while, so make sure you have enough Phoenix credits. So complete those daily hard modes and spam those challenge modes. So like I mentioned earlier, we are currently at sort of a good pace in the game where challenge modes can be done repeatedly now. Well, depending on the type of challenge mode. So it's not like I know it's not like blitzing through hard modes. Those can be done just like that, even with a few yellow pieces and even solo. But challenge modes are no longer as difficult as they were. Again, assuming you do have decent gear. Now, the Lexington and Lincoln instances are 2 of the easier ones to complete in challenge mode. So even if you don't use any glitch, you can complete them quite quickly, provided you run with a decent group. So again, make sure you have those Phoenix credits. So gear score will be implemented, and it's something like in World of Warcraft. So the specifics are in your screen right now, and Yeah, I do have misgivings about using gear score as a measure of whether someone is basically qualified for content given the, some of the issues in game like the DPS calculation issues and not being able to see the actual health value of another player, but yeah, I guess that's another topic. Now, what's important to know is that gear score will be seen by other players. So I think you may want to sort of push your figures higher if you sort of foresee yourself encountering a whole lot of gear score horse. So it's pretty much ties into the suggestions I made before this. So either get geared right now before the content drop, or make sure you have enough Phoenix credits and mats to craft the new goodies on day one of the patch. Now, gear score is important even if the system prevents you from entering an instance due to whatever gear score you have. You can bet that there are those players out there, if you do random matchmaking, they're going to do that gear score requirement for you. So about gear score, it's also going to affect how you're able to join the Dark Zone. So from the recent live stream, it appears that a score of 160 will be the determining factor on which bracket you will fall into in the Dark Zone once you're at max level. So about that 160 figure, anyone just correct me if I'm wrong on that. Now, either you're in the upper bracket or the lower one based on that 160 number, again, assuming that's accurate. So having a few yellows, I think, based on what they were saying in the live stream, can sort of push you into the higher brackets, so keep that in mind. Now, another small bit about the Dark Zone rankings is the sort of change to gear, or how you acquire gear based on ranking. So it's a good change given the sort of purples, when you hit max level, and the purples that you get right now at max level, rank 30 purples, are somewhat useless once you hit, again, max level. So if you were thinking of getting some gear based on your Dark Zone currency, better consider the incoming changes and base your purchases on that. So I would suggest that you sort of rank up your character to at least level 25, as it will sort of make it easier for you to gear up and have more yellow gear on you. And I think that's it for my suggestions on the things you can do prior to the 12th of April. Now, remember that the Incursions content patch is a free patch, so you don't have, basically don't need to purchase the season pass, in case you were wondering. Now, if you do have other suggestions or things you want to recommend to be done before the patch, just leave them in the comment section below. So please like, share, and subscribe if you think this was helpful. Thanks for watching.